Is he here? Okay. We have Jim Hoft. There he is. Jim Hoft is the proprietor of Great Way Pundit Blog, a St. Louis blog rated number 17 in the country in a recent ABC poll of best American political blogs. His site gets over 1 million visitors a month, and his stories have made it on Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, the Fox Nation, to name a few. Jim will discuss how conservatives can get the most accurate news, blogs, radio, etc., and discussing Netroots and the forthcoming Conservatives' Little Black Book. He'll tell you more about it. Welcome, Jim Hoft.
Hello, Washington! Hello, Missouri! Woo! Thank you for being here today. Today, I was actually given a topic that I'm going to try to stay on topic. And I'm going to talk to you about conservative and non-biased media sources. But first, I want to tell you a little personal story. Since it's the 4th of July, I was thinking of this story about freedom and struggle and what some people today, they don't have what we have. Some people are suffering out there. We've heard all of the stories, especially lately, the stories coming from Iran. And so I want to tell you this story. In 2007, I went to Prague, Czech Republic. I was invited as the only American blogger to blog at an international democracy and security conference. While I was there, I went to the headquarters of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. Radio Free Europe, in case I thought this was interesting, in case you didn't know this, today its headquarters are in the old Czech Communist Parliament building. I was told an interesting story by the people who work there, the people who try to spread freedom around this globe. Inside regimes where there is no freedom, freedom like what we enjoy here in America, the people still hunger and thirst for truth, just like we do here in America. That is why Radio Liberty is so important. This station sends radio reports to all of the regional countries that do not have democracy or freedom, just like they did during the Cold War. But every so often, what the regime will do is these regimes will block that radio channel. So Radio Liberty has to find another channel to broadcast on. And here's the amazing part. This is the amazing part. The people always find that news channel. They always find that new news channel. There is a hunger for truth in these countries. And there's a hunger for truth in our country today. At this conference, I also had the privilege of meeting over 70 political dissidents who had lived inside undemocratic regimes and who had been punished, jailed, and tortured, and I'm not talking about waterboarding. I also heard President George W. Bush give an amazing speech to these dissidents. It was a wonderful speech. The president promised these people from these countries, all who live in tyranny and hopelessness can know the United States will not ignore your oppression or excuse your oppressors. When you stand for your liberty, we will stand with you. It was an amazing speech. It really was an amazing speech. I was so happy to be there. And obviously, this president is much different than the current president we have in the White House. My point is that this speech wasn't reported that way. Imagine that. The White House had brought all of their liberal reporters with them on this trip. The White House was stuck in this paradigm that this is the way how you operate, this is the way how you communicate. It wasn't working, and it didn't work that day. These reporters that they dragged halfway across the globe, they reported a different story. It was like I was at a different conference. The state-run media twisted this story so completely and focused instead on their own agenda and somehow how this country didn't like America and didn't like George Bush. They reported on the few dozen protesters that were outside running around in the street, these crazy protesters we always see. And I'm not talking about you people here today. Those crazy radical protesters who were anti-American. And they ignored his speech entirely. How often have we seen this from our media? How often? This happens more than you would like to know, and it's just hard to know where to get the best news today. Do any of you know what happened last Friday? What happened with Congress? That's right. The Democrats passed the massive cap and trade bill. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the largest single tax hike in U.S. history. But you may have missed this news because the media instead was reporting on... That's right, Michael Jackson died. In fact, 93% of the news that day, 93% of the news was about Michael Jackson's death. So it's likely that you may have missed this in other news that day. The largest tax hike in American history. Unbelievable. This is really unbelievable. These are just a couple examples of how our media works today. And I could go on and on and on and on. It's sad. Our mainstream media is really sad. Sean Hannity even says today that the media is dead. I think a lot of us would agree with that. But there is hope, and that's what I was going to talk to you about today. You do have options and choices, but it's not going to be easy. You do have access to the truth, but it may take some work. First of all, there's a cable news channel today that is relatively fair and balanced, and it's doing quite well, by the way, in case you didn't hear. In the second quarter of this year, Fox News had the top 10 rated cable news shows. The top 10. The top 10 rated shows. There's obviously a market today for fair and balanced news. So that's one avenue for you to find the truth. If you want the truth, you can also find and listen to talk radio. There's Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Laura Ingraham, Mark Levin, Neil Lawrence, and the list goes on and on. There's local 97.1 FM, St. Louis. For Jamie Allman is on in the morning, and the Great Dana Show, you don't want to miss Dana. There's Mark Reardon. There's Diane Jones of KPLW, who's with us today. Most of these radio hosts have their own websites too, so if in case you miss their show, you can go to their website generally and catch some of the stories that they talked about. There are also conservative websites and foundations. There's the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, the Weekly Standard, the National Review, Human Events, Commentary Magazine, Reason Magazine, The Spectator, Front Page Magazine, Lucy Ann. These are just a few of the conservative websites and foundations that are out there. And they're listed on my blog, by the way, in case, so you can look them up there. And I'll probably post this speech later because I'm going to give you a lot of information. So in case you missed some of it or want the information, I'll have that up at Gateway Pundit later today.